This is Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. On the show, you'll hear from innovators in the food space. We'll have disruptive conversations with people from around the globe who are taking the lead on topics like food sustainability, ending world hunger, food security, and so much more. I'm your host, Paul Newnham. In this episode, we're talking to Devin De Wulf. Devin is the parade organizer in New Orleans, Louisiana, and the pioneer behind the Bean Parade. In today's conversation, we'll dive into the origins and evolution of the Bean Parade. You'll hear Devin explain his journey from not liking beans to making them a central part of his life's mission. He'll share how he began this carnival-like event and transformed it into a community force for good. And Devin will also talk about the future of Beanlandia and its potential impact on New Orleans. Let's get into it. Devin, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Let's get started. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So I'm a parade organizer in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I've created a bean parade. And we have grown over the years. It's been 15 years now. And we're also creating a community center / cultural space in New Orleans called Beanlandia, which is where we are today.
Amazing. So how did this all come about?
Yes, I grew up not eating beans, but then I lived in Brazil for a year when I was in college. And after a few months, I realized that I love beans. And later, I ended up coming to New Orleans after Katrina to volunteer. And when I got here, I realized two things very quickly. One, this place is like Brazil culturally. And two, they also love beans here. And since we have a carnival here in New Orleans, I just got it in my head to try to create a bean parade one day. And that was 15 years ago. We started really small. The first year we had 25 people. We glue beans onto jackets and things to make works of art, basically. And then we parade in the streets the day before Mardi Gras, which is always a Monday. And Monday is traditionally the day you would eat red beans and rice here in New Orleans. So it seemed like a good idea to make a bean parade on a Monday. And there's no bigger Monday than Lundi Gras for us here. So the Bean Parade has grown, and over the years, it's also become kind of a force for good, something that can support the community through COVID or through hurricanes, things like that. And that's what we think is the purpose, or as I call it, the beaning of life.
The beaning of life. I love it. And so you said that you didn't love beans. So tell us a little bit about where you're from and how you ended up here.
So I grew up in South Carolina, and my family beans weren't really part of our normal week-by-week diet, so I wasn't very used to them. I'd certainly had them as typical American diet, like they're periodically in a chili or something like that, but it wasn't something I ever really thought about. And then living in Brazil, Brazilians eat beans twice a day, every day, pretty much. They're a constant. And after being exposed to that and just learning the varieties and all the recipes and all the different ways you can prepare them, they're now easily my favorite food. And I eat them every week, 5-6 times a week. My children love beans. I love cooking them. Soups, other bean dishes, things like cassoulet or red beans and rice, or it's an endless rabbit hole, honestly. And the fact that they're great for climate and the fact that they're great for health is, as we say here, lagniappe, which means the extra thing. The main thing is they're delicious, but they're also highly beneficial in other ways. So it's a food that I think people can get behind.
So how did the Krewe of Red Beans come about? How did it come into being?
So the first bean suit, as we call it, was actually a Halloween costume, because I was sitting in a bar one day trying to think of how I could make a good costume. Costuming in New Orleans is a really big part of the culture. Halloween is a really big deal here, and you have to have a handmade costume. So the idea just popped in my head. I love beans, and I should just make a costume of beans. And when I did that and I wore it out, the response, the average person on the street that saw me, the response was kind of ridiculous. It was as if I was famous or something, People were touching me, taking pictures of the jacket. Like it sparked joy in the people. And I think there's something in New Orleans, there's a love affair of beans because of our culinary history here. The red beans and rice are such a big part of our city's culture. And it just seemed like, oh, there's something there. And the other thing that was happening to me at that time was I was learning a lot about the carnival culture here and some of the traditions that have been going on for centuries in our city. One in particular is called Mardi Gras Indian or Black Masking Indian, where these people hand sew these incredibly elaborate costumes, and they work all year on them basically to wear them on Mardi Gras. And the act of putting so much effort into a costume, into a suit, it creates its own kind of power, and it can be transformative once you put it on. So I was witnessing that process and thinking a lot about culture and thinking a lot about the reaction that people had to my bean costume. And I just decided, okay, my next carnival, I'm going to create a parade. And that was the birth of it. So I started recruiting people, hey, if you come over to my house on Sunday, I'll make a bunch of food and glue our beans on our jackets together. And the process of doing that actually builds community. So the group started to have this identity. And over time, it just kept growing. And then eventually, we started to have an audience and people coming to our parade. And it just has grown kind of organically over the last 15 years.
So it's been 15 years. So tell us how that's sort of showing up now. So what does the parade look like?
Yeah, so the parade itself is this magical day where for the last 4 days, New Orleans has been deep in Mardi Gras. We call it Deep Gras. And it's a time period where we kind of lose track of everything else around the world. If a war were to break out, like we would probably be the last people to know about it. For example, we're parading, we're dancing the streets. And it kind of culminates on Lundi Gras and Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras Day is a giant holiday here in the city. Everything shuts down. There's just endless block parties happening. It's pretty magical. And before our bean parade was created, Lundi Gras was kind of a quiet day to prepare for the big day. And what we've started to do is kind of have these 2 big days in a row now. So when we parade, about 15,000 people will join us. They will dance in the streets with us for the afternoon. And you have hundreds of people in their own bean costumes that they've been working on for months to create. And, because we put all the effort into the costumes, when we wear it, you just have this kind of magical feeling. And then you're surrounded by community. You run into your friends. You dance with your children in the streets. You're marching to the musicians of your city. And it's just the kind of pinnacle of both community and culture. And it's one of the best things that I get to do in my life.
And in doing that, you are connecting and building that kind of cultural connection. So how has that spilled over into other expressions or other, addressing other community needs that maybe you've seen or other challenges? We know New Orleans has faced its fair share of challenges over the years, particularly over the last 15 years. So how has there been a relationship there?
Yeah, so it's provided a vehicle to organize people towards common purpose and common goals. And before COVID, we had a big parade and we had a following, but our budget was around $90,000 a year. We weren't like a big group. And then when COVID began, my wife is an ER doctor at the Safety Net Hospital here. So I watched her risk her life to care for the community day in and day out in the early days of the pandemic. And it was pretty inspiring to watch that. And what I did was start an effort to raise money to buy food for the healthcare workers to basically show them love, give them a little boost. And our parade group is where I was able to get a team of volunteers together to help me run this effort. It grew kind of out of control almost. In 6 weeks, we raised $1 million. And we were feeding every single ER and ICU in our city. So we were sending out thousands of meals every day. And by doing that, we were supporting restaurants, mom and pop neighborhood spots. And we were also employing 35 musicians to deliver all the food. So we were really creating jobs for the musicians that were, they didn't have a company helping them. They're independent workers, essentially. They don't really have a safety net. So creating job opportunities was a really, really important thing for them at that time. And after that effort, we created other efforts because all we wanted to do was keep helping. So we figured out other ways to employ people, to create jobs, delivering groceries to elders, helping out after hurricanes, helping out after tornadoes. So it's kind of been one thing after another. And the Bean Parade is the mechanism to get people to be organized to do that. And so our little neighborhood Bean Parade, has had an impact in our city of over $4 million now, $1 million of jobs for 252 people who are musicians and other culture bearers in our city. We've helped repair 150 homes after a hurricane. We've installed solar projects on restaurants. It's remarkable, and all of it is really from this weird Bean Parade. And so when I created the Bean Parade, I never imagined that that would ever happen, but it is the purpose. It's the reason for it. It's the meaning that we're here, a way that we can make our community better. And if I've learned anything over the last few years, it's that the people in your community are really the ones who care the most about it. And so we have a responsibility to do whatever we can to make it better, because nobody else will. It's up to us. And that's something that I'm internally grateful to have the opportunity to spend my time doing. It's a way to make the city better for my children. And it's also a way to create these relationships with people. It's the basis of most of my friendships. It's the basis of most of the relationships I have in the city with people. It's how I met my wife. It's how my children were born. So it's had a huge impact on my life. And it's remarkable that that has all come from essentially one Halloween costume.
Absolutely amazing. You mentioned in that response two things I just wanted you to explain a little bit more: restaurants and solar panels. What was that about?
Yeah, so after a major hurricane in 2021, Hurricane Ida, it was the strongest hurricane to hit Louisiana in recorded history, and it knocked out power to our entire city for 10 days. And because we had previously done this effort with 45 local restaurants, we have really good relationships with a lot of chefs, and we're just trying to help small businesses. And then when you have a situation where the whole city has no power, you have to imagine each restaurant is a place with a walk-in and refrigeration and freezers, and they're sitting on thousands of dollars of food. And after Hurricane Ida, every restaurant in our city had to throw away all their food. And at the same moment when that was occurring, people were starting to go hungry, because after day 4, day 5, after a major hurricane, you're basically left to fend for yourselves. There's not a lot of government support. And if you're not stocked up on food and non-perishables, after a couple of days, you've eaten what you've got in your fridge, and you're starting to get into that sort of hunger territory. So a solution to that is, well, every single restaurant in every single neighborhood could have solar panels and batteries. And then if the power does go out, that restaurant becomes a microgrid. And the benefits are numerous for the neighborhood, because you can become a cooling center, you can give people ice, you can give them food, you're not wasting your food, you're able to use it to feed the community. You can charge people's cell phones. So all of the things that you need after a hurricane, they can be at a restaurant. And if we look at restaurants and we think about them as pieces of infrastructure, then that's how we can build block by block resilience. And we have to accept the fact that the government's not going to solve every problem. So how do we create little bits of resilience in our neighborhoods? And that's one of the projects that we've been working on.
Thank you. You talked about Beanlandia. What is Beanlandia?
Yeah, so we're creating a building that will generate revenue through tourism that will then be something that can support our community. That's essentially it. It's trying to create a renewable resource. And all of the work that we did in the last 4 years was responding to a disaster or responding to an issue like COVID. What I'd like to do is create something that can be proactive and something that can help address the 3 main issues that people in New Orleans are facing, which is climate, violence and crime, and what I call social cohesion, which is undoing racism and segregation and all that stuff and bringing people together. The way that you can bring people together is through food and culture and music. And so that's our space. It's a bean museum. It's a place where people can learn about this weird bean parade and see how we live here as locals in New Orleans. And that type of cultural tourism, I think, is both interesting, it's authentic, it's also, there's a yearning for that. Like, why do people live in this city? Why are we so passionate about this place? What is our culture like? Our culture here is different than every other place in America, and it's magical. And so we're sharing that with people who visit. And if we can do that and share that and educate people in that way, we can also raise money through that tourism that can fund children's education programs, children's art, children's music. If we did that year in, year out, then I think that's how we could lower violence in our city.
So in terms of you, a 501c3 nonprofit, how do you fund this work, and how can people support it?
Yeah, so we fund it a couple ways. One, we have members who join Beanlandia, and when you join, you pay whatever you want per month. And that money is kind of how we sustain this, how we pay the mortgage, how we grow staffing, how we grow programming. People join, I think, for two reasons. One, they want to be part of something. And what we're creating is a community. It's families coming together. It's kids playing with each other. It's people costuming together. It's people parading together. All of these are building community. And it allows for people to have this common bond and be part of something bigger than themselves. And it's just joyful and fun. Or people are joining because they believe in the social good and the social mission of it. They want to see New Orleans thriving, and they are like enamored by our city because our city is one that people fall in love with. And so hopefully more and more people that look at, oh, this is a group that's a force for good in this place that I love. And, you know, the more people that join that, the more we can do.
So in this journey that you've been on, what's one thing that surprised you the most? What have you learned in this process?
I think the biggest surprise is just how powerful a community group can become, in a sense, of making change. And, you know, it's just kind of mind-boggling, the impact that we've been able to have. 45 restaurants, hundreds of musicians, hundreds of community elders getting groceries, hundreds of people getting jobs. And I think we're only just beginning. I think we have decades and decades of this to come. And I'm very excited for the long term, you know, what this is like in 5 years or 10 years. And I think there's just a need that we have as humans to basically stop living on social media and build community. And I think that's the way that we can make our own lives better, enrich ourselves and also those around us. And again, at the end of our days, when we look back on life, that's, I think, what's going to be the most important.
So what would you say is your vision for the future? You've been going 15 years. Where do you hope to be in the next 5?
Well, the next 5, I think that we have a space that's generating programming for our community, and that's making the area safer and making the area more climate prepared and promoting beans from a climate lens. I'm imagining this is becoming the most diverse space in our city as well, through culture and through different nonprofits that also live here. We're creating a space where everyone feels like they're welcome and everyone feels part of it and at home. And that's pretty rare in our city, to have a space that can shapeshift, be Black one day, white the next day, Hispanic one day, Asian one day. So all of that, I think, is creating cohesion. And that has like a magic to it. And that's kind of, I just see this getting stronger over time. And as more and more people become part of it, I think we'll be able to accomplish more for ourselves, for our community. And it's hard to imagine that all comes from a bean.
Thinking about the bean, I like to finish these conversations by seeing what our guest's favorite dish is. So I wanted to ask you what your favorite bean dish is.
Well, my personal favorite, I have to go hometown, red beans and rice, which is kidney beans that have been slow simmered with onions and garlic and celery. Celery is the secret ingredient, by the way. It really is important in that dish. And a bay leaf or two. And traditionally, people would put a ham hock in there for seasoning, like your leftover bones from a previous meal. And that dish just slow simmers all day and fills the house with this aroma that's magical. And it's a dish here in New Orleans that is also very communal. We share it. You can't make a small batch of red beans. You have to make a big batch. And it's perfect for having a house party or a dinner party or sharing food with people on the parade route, or it's just such a good vehicle for community. That is my favorite meal. That's my favorite thing to cook for people. And it's completely part of the heart and soul of the city. After Hurricane Katrina, New Orleanians were scattered all over America. And the thing that they realized very quickly was, like, I need to make red beans. And that became like a very important culinary, cultural practice that, you don't appreciate something till it's gone. And that's a story that you hear with a lot of different people, like finding the right type of bean so they could cook that again. And just, it's such a unique part of our city. And it's not in other places. And you just don't appreciate it till you lose it. And then once you go through that, I think, people in the city, they're in love with kidney beans and red beans. It's a really deeply rooted practice here. And it spans black, white, rich, poor. It's something that we can really come together with, which is special.
No, absolutely. Well, thank you, Devin, for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
You've been listening to Future Fork, a show that explores the world of food and the decisions we can make today that will shape our future. Future Fork is produced by Disruptive Consulting Solutions and supports the SDG2 Advocacy Hub. For more info, head to the website futureforkpodcast.com. This show was produced with strategy and production support from Wavelength Creative. So you don't miss an episode of Future Fork, make sure to subscribe to or follow the show in your podcast app. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps others find the show. I'm Paul Newnham, and I'll see you in the next episode.